Hi folks, and welcome to Helping Heart, a game about kindness. On the team we've got myself, Sarah Brandcross, we've got Charlie Mannion, Matt Berry and Matt Hartley, who you'll be seeing all later. I'm going to give you a demo of our new game, playing as myself, Sarah entering my username there, and then here we are on the tutorial screen. We've got our instructions here for the keys you use to move around, and then the aim of the game: help 6 of your new pals to complete the game. So this is a game about restoring your heart after lockdown. We've got a little dude there. He's just emerged from the fog of lockdown 2. It's the first time he's left his house in 4 weeks. His heart is empty from the loneliness of being separated from his friends, and he wants to go out, help some people, make himself feel good. So off he goes. We're heading to our first character here, right there, so you know just where to go, and then we're going to speak to him. Thank goodness I found you. I have a terrible problem. And now you have the option of either helping, which we hope you'll do, or declining to help. Sucks to be you. Let's try that there. You can just hear our little failure sound there. That wasn't the right answer. Surprise, surprise. Let's try again this time. Maybe I can help. They've run out of things to watch on Netflix. What a disaster. Seen everything. So desperate they've had to go outside. Do they have any suggestions? And now we've got a couple of options that we can have to try and help this person. Let's try Tiger King. They've seen it. Of course they have. Everyone has. So let's try again. We can go through the tree. There's a lot of different paths you can take through these things to try and find your way to the right answer to help that person and win that point. Let's try Disney Plus. Oh, they're quite keen on this, but they don't have the money. Let's try a book. Yes, looks like we find the right answer. And yes, you can hear that success sound. You can see in the top left, our heart has started to become full. And now we're just going to skip through some of the rest of the characters that you can play. We've got 6 different stories in here. This is just a sneak preview. If you want to play them all, of course, you're going to have to go and play the game later. And then finally, we're almost done. We're on our final character here in the haunted graveyard. They are so bored. Why are they bored? It's because they've lost their job as a balloon artist. What a disaster. So we've got different routes we can take here. We can suggest career change here, or we can go to this thing about ghosts, but then circle back into career change. What can they do? What about software? Northcoders can teach anyone to code. Little plug for you there. Let's try that one. Only 14 weeks for a boot camp. What an amazing deal. Sign me up immediately. And then we're just about to finish our last task, win the game. Here we go, and that takes us through. We've been added to the lovely list of previous players. If we want to play again, we can just click here to restart the whole scenario. And now over to Matt to talk you through our processes.
We wanted to build something fun, something that we could look at when we had finished or in a year's time and still be really happy with how it turned out. Additionally, we wanted it to be something we'd be happy to show off to our friends and family, or people who aren't as tech literate. We hovered around the idea of a game for a fair bit. We made the decision after being introduced to Phaser 3, a framework for building web games using JavaScript, which Matt Berry will explain in more detail later. We wanted to learn new tech and skills, not just go over the tech stacks we've been working with throughout Northcoders. We wanted to give our skills a real test. Games, being a beast of a profession in their own right, played right into that desire. The idea came after a discussion as to how games can be very competitive at times, and we thought, what if we try go against that and make something that could really put a smile on someone's face? This was a daunting project, since we were aware of the unique challenges when learning new technologies and games development, so we spent plenty of time planning and designing, covering everything from how the game would control to how the full app would look. We explored various tech and design options before hitting the ground running, knowing exactly what we wanted to make. Throughout the game, we play tested and ensured that everything was running as intended. Throughout the project, we worked using agile principles, splitting the project into smaller tasks, quickly planned each task and worked through them on a Kanban board, and assigning tickets such as developing the movement controls or implementing sound effects. This initially seemed overwhelming, but this was beneficial for seeing the project features and game mechanics come to life. We gave our various technologies quick test runs in the spiking process, seeing what was possible and what could work together. How it all worked, especially Phaser, which is such a massive technology that exploring it took a lot of time. Once we knew how the tech worked and what could potentially be achieved, we planned an MVP and pinpointed the specific tasks that would serve as major blockers for the development. Throughout development, we would go into pairs. This was pretty much for most tasks, especially the ones that involved riskier chunks of development, allowing us to bounce ideas off of one another and locate solutions faster. This was managed using a Kanban board, done remotely using Trello, with team members being added to tickets during meetings. We also kept things fairly freeform so that different people could pair and tasks could be swapped around if people felt they needed it. All of this was managed using GitHub, a service we're all very familiar with. We had strict rules on the main and development branches to ensure code worked, and our various tasks had their own fresh branches from the dev branch so as not to conflict with other members' work. We would then review each other's code before merges could occur, ensuring we were all familiar with the code base as possible. Now, here's Matthew Berry to talk about our tech stack.
So, for a quick overview of the technologies used for our project. The game itself is built in Phaser 3, which lies inside a React component, and it was deployed using Netlify. We built a server using Node.js, which is hosted on Heroku, and it accepts post requests of usernames to add to our leaderboards. So why did we choose these technologies, I hear you ask? So for the front end, after brainstorming the type of game that we wanted to build in terms of functionality and graphics, we came to the conclusion that we wanted a retro Mario style game that's easy on the eye and easy for anyone to just pick up and navigate around the map. And we found Phaser to be very fit for purpose. It's also a great technology to use. There was a lot of intuitive features, and it's something that we found to be surprisingly very logical, with methods like game.resume to literally just resume the game. It was still a challenge, as there was quite a steep learning curve, as it was totally new to all of us. So for our React, during our spiking phase, we discovered that it was possible to configure and mount the Phaser game inside a React component, which is very useful for us as we need to import features from other files such as the map, sprites and sounds to use within our game. And it's also a framework that we all enjoy using. We've had hands-on experience with before, and it's popular in the industry, so experience with it is going to be beneficial for us all. So by creating a single page application, it doesn't update the entire page but only the required content that you need, which significantly improves the website speed and the user's experience, so you can quickly start and quickly restart if you enjoyed it that much. So this is where we utilised Reach Router to redirect the user to different elements of our game. The web page was styled using React style components. It's easy to see what's been styled and where, and we could make components reusable for different parts of our website. The map itself, we used a program called Tiled, which literally lets you create the map tile by tile. During our spiking phase, we saw that it's been paired with Phaser before, so we created a mini prototype of the map in week 1, so we could take this design map, put it into the React component with Phaser, and see if it was working, which turned out to be quite successful, and it was actually quite fun to get creative and design our own sections of the map. So for the back end, as I mentioned earlier, we used Node.js to set up a server. After mapping out our MVP, we came to the conclusion that we didn't need a huge back end with a database, which is quite time consuming to set up. This allowed us to put focus into other areas, such as sounds and such as the score indicator that fills up, which in my opinion gives the game a nice feel to it. For TDD, we used Jest on our utility functions, and that's it for the technologies that we used. Hand you over to Charlie, who'll talk about some of the challenges that we faced.
One of our main challenges was getting to grips with Phaser and using it in conjunction with React. We found we were unable to pass information in and out of Phaser as props, like you would with a traditional React component. Our solution to this was to keep any data needed for the Phaser game within the game itself. The downside of this was that we ended up with a huge and unwieldy game file. One of our strengths as a team was working collaboratively and with organisation. We were great at swapping pairs, having regular knowledge sharing sessions, and tracking our progress with a Trello board. This meant that we all felt we had a really great understanding of what each bit of code was doing, and we avoided any confusion that this large file might have caused. Another challenge was that most of the phaser docs were geared towards running and jumping games, whereas we wanted a top-down game view combined with a dialogue adventure, as we felt this would be a richer game experience. But being unable to ask for help or follow tutorials greatly improved our problem-solving and debugging skills, and we all felt a huge sense of accomplishment when we got things working and successfully executed our vision. Whilst we had good experience with tech such as React and Node.js, which we used elsewhere in our app, phaser and game development required a completely different skill set to what we learned at Northcoders. For some of us, even the terminology of game development, such as sprites, was completely new. So we're all really proud of what we have built in 8 days of coding. I'm now going to talk about what we would do differently next time. If we had more time, or could go back and design the game differently, we would all like to try and find a way to extract more code from our phaser game, in the hope of making the code neater and easier to modify. Because of the keyboard navigation, this is currently just a browser game. If we have more time, we'd like to evaluate how we could make the controls work well on mobile. We would ideally like to build a database in order to persist the storage of game players, as currently names are only held on the player board for a few hours. We would also like to store our game plot in a tree structure database, such as MongoDB, as this would allow for greater complexity and randomization. But one of our main objectives was to build something fun that we would enjoy working on, and I think it's safe to say that we're really proud of our game and had a great time creating it too.